Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 6. Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. Ling Han and Lu Yutong departed. Ling Muyun and others wanted to stop them but didn't dare to act. Even Ling Zhongquan was defeated. Who else in the Ling clan had the power to resist? None. Unless Ling Dongxing returned, that is. However, even if Ling Dongxing returned, which side would he be on? That was obvious. The 5 maidservants had extremely colorful expressions. They have watched such an interesting show that it'd be enough for them to brag about for 3 years. Where are we going? Lu Yutong asked Ling Han after leaving the Ling clan grounds. Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, Ling Han replied. Lu Yutong made an, oh. She thought that Ling Han would be prescribing her medicine. After all, she was a patient. The two walked quickly, and after only 10 minutes, they reached their destination. Heaven's Medicine Pavilion was a very powerful existence, and had a branch in every city in Rain Country. Whether there were any branches outside of Rain Country, Ling Han wasn't too sure due to his limited knowledge. Anyway, the variety of medicinal plants and pills in Heaven's Medicine Pavilion should be more than enough, as they should have every kind available on market. If something couldn't be bought there, then it definitely could not be bought in other places as well. Ling Han entered the pavilion and approached a counter. Behind it sat a very beautiful young girl. Seeing Ling Han walk over, she immediately stood up with a smile, and said, "Hello, my name is Xiao Tao. I'm honored to be of service." Her eyes focused on Lu Yutong for a moment. After all, this young girl was unusually beautiful, even she felt slightly captivated despite being female herself. Ling Han nodded, saying, "I would like to buy violet lotus grass, blue branch fruit, 100-year vermilion bamboo, red-leafed potato, rotted leaf dead tree roots." Xiao Tao's face went completely blank. She had been working here for over 2 years, and yet had never heard even the names of these 5 medicinal plants. She stared blankly for a moment before saying, "Customers, I apologize, but I haven't even heard of these medicinal plants. Please wait for a moment, I will ask someone else on your behalf." "All right." Ling Han nodded. These 5 medicinal plants were indeed quite uncommon, because aside from using them to concoct the element heart recover spirit powder, they were very rarely used for other concoctions. And even though the element heart recover spirit powder was not a high-grade concoction, it was a medicine he created personally during his previous life. Although he had taught the formula to a few people, it may not have been passed down through the generations. After a while, they saw Xiao Tao and a middle-aged man around 30 years of age walk towards them. "Are you the one who's causing trouble?" The middle-aged man looked at Ling Han, his face filled with disdain. Ling Han frowned. "What do you mean, causing trouble? Randomly naming some non-existent medicinal plants, isn't this purposely causing trouble?" The middle-aged man harumphed, his facial expression proclaiming silently, "Ha, I've seen through you." Ling Han asked, "Why do you think that I just randomly named some non-existent medicinal plants?" "Aren't you asking nonsense? I'm a grand alchemist from the medium level of yellow grade. Even I have never heard of these medicinal plants, so aren't you just randomly naming them? Get out of here." The middle-aged man waved his hand as if he was shooing away flies. His name was Ma Da Jun, and he was indeed an alchemist at the medium level of yellow grade. There were other customers in the shop, and once they heard his words, they all let out an "oh" sound, their faces filled with respect. Alchemist was a very scarce and noble profession. There were 4 major grades in the profession: heaven, earth, black, yellow. Every grade was further divided into 3 minor levels: high, medium and low levels. However, even an alchemist from the medium level of the yellow grade was a welcomed and respected existence, someone all major powers would fight to have. It was like that also in Grey Cloud Town. There was only one alchemist of this rank, and he worked in Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. Usually, he didn't even need to concoct any medicinal pills, the purpose behind his presence was simply being an overseer. Thus, Ma Da Jun naturally had enough of a reason to be prideful. Even Alchemist Ma has said so, this brat must indeed have come to cause trouble. What a joke, he actually came to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion to misbehave. Where did this fool come from? Maybe he's come to please the audience. Everyone was on the side of Ma Da Jun. An alchemist was an extremely noble existence, and thus their partiality was hardly surprising. Ling Han was slightly irritated, and said, if you've never heard of them, that's because of your own lack of ability. How can you without any basis proclaim that others are just causing trouble? Go and ask for the most well-educated person in your shop, I shall speak to him. Who do you think you are to command me? Ma Da-jun similarly looked extremely unhappy. He had come out personally to expose him, so why was he still here, being a pest? Moreover, Ma Da-jun was the person in charge of this Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. Who else would be better educated than him here? Naturally, that was excluding Grandmaster Zhu. The other was just here on a holiday when he suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and so was just borrowing this Heaven's Medicine Pavilion's facilities to concoct pills. Seeing this, the corners of Lu Yutong's lips slightly lifted, and looked a little expectant. She would not act this time. Heaven's Medicine Pavilion was a colossal existence. Even the imperial family of Rain Country would have to treat him with respect. She was only a member of the younger generation of the Lu clan, so she definitely could not accompany Ling Han to mess around in this place. Aren't you quite capable? Why are you being embarrassed now? Although she agreed to become Ling Han's follower, it was just temporary. Moreover, with her pride, that was something she was most unwilling to do, at least at present. Thus, she really wanted to see Ling Han's embarrassed face. However cold a woman was, she would still want to retaliate when made unhappy. Get lost. Ma Da-jun brushed off his hands, looking impatient. You won't regret this, Ling Han slowly said. Ha ha, what can you do to me? Ma Da-jun felt unreasonably tickled. This young man actually dared to threaten him. The other people in the shop too looked as if they were watching a comedy. Was this young man a spoiled young master from some clan? However, even if he was the son of the clan head of either one of the two great clans, he would still not be qualified to stand against a medium-level alchemist of the yellow grade. Ling Han only smiled, and turned towards Lu Yutong. A feeling of despise flashed through Lu Yutong's heart. Was he going to ask her to take action again? However, she only heard Ling Han say, help me shout loudly, you've put too much Copper Valley sand. Do it 3 times, the louder the better. What did that mean? Lu Yutong's beautiful eyes widened, but when she saw the confidence on Ling Han's face, her heart trembled and she couldn't help but do as he told her. You've put too much Copper Valley sand. You've put too much Copper Valley sand. You've put too much Copper Valley sand. She was a person from the element gathering tier, so her shout was like a lion's roar. You're both crazy, chase them out of here. Ma Da-jun furiously said to the 2 guards in the shop. Peng! A loud noise echoed out, as if something had exploded. Any alchemist would be able to tell that this noise was caused by an exploding furnace, something that every alchemist would experience. Tong, 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 tong. A series of footsteps was heard from upstairs. Very quickly, a white-haired elder appeared at the top of the staircase, and shot right in front of Lu Yutong like an arrow, excitedly asking, how do you know that I've put in too much Copper Valley sand? The elder's figure still had some traces of suffering from a furnace's explosion. His brow, beard and hair were all partially burned and half his face was blackened with ashes. His clothes were likewise in disarray, covered in singes. Being intently stared at by such an old man, the odd feeling within Lu Yutong's heart could be imagined. But what caused her greatest surprise was the silver emblem hanging on one side of the elder's chest. That was the sign of an alchemist, and silver represented black grade. One emblem represented low level. This elder was a low-level alchemist of the black grade. Goodness, this kind of existence, even in the great clans of the imperial city, would be considered a revered guest. Even the clan head of her Lu clan, faced with the other, would have to very politely address the other as Grandmaster. But now, this Grandmaster was actually looking at her with a fawning gaze, his face filled with the desire to seek knowledge. How would Lu Yutong not feel odd? She couldn't help looking at Ling Han. How many other mysteries was this young man hiding? Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 7, Grandmaster Zhu. Pooh. Seeing this scene, everyone in this medicine shop could not help exhaling sharply in shock. Even if there were some who did not know Grandmaster Zhu He-sin, they could tell from the silver emblem hanging on his breast that he was a low-level alchemist of the black grade. Black grade. To the common people, this was an indescribably noble identity that could be compared to the high-ranking court officials of the empire. It was even more noble a status than a mayor of a city enjoyed. But someone like this, a grandmaster, displayed such an expression just because of one word. How could they not be shocked? And the cause of everything was a young man. How was this possible? Many people were driven mad. This fact was something they couldn't accept, even if they shattered their heads. Ma Da-jun particularly looked quite aghast. This Grandmaster Zhu was an important personage in Heaven's Medicine Pavilion branch in Rain Country. He actually wasn't even able to see such a person normally. He had only heard of some of the others' affairs through rumors. So how could he not be shocked, seeing this expression on the Grandmaster's face? Could it be that this brat was not here to cause trouble? Were the medicinal plants he named real? Ling Han sniffed a little, and said, "Well, you're quite clever, making a few changes to the formula for the wind and fire pill, using purple back bear pill, 1000 shred cane and black rock powder to replace a few of the more valuable ingredients. In this manner, there would not be much difference in the medicinal effects, yet production cost could be greatly lowered." "How did you know?" Zhu Hixin suddenly turned around and looked at Ling Han in shock, asking in a rough voice. This was his secret. He had planned on publicizing it only after he had succeeded, so as to give a good shock to some of his old friends and rivals. Ling Han's smile widened, and he said, "Naturally, I used my nose to sniff it out." "Are you a monster? You found out just by using your nose." Pill formulae were an extremely valuable item, and no alchemist would easily reveal their formulae to others. To an alchemist, it was something as important as martial arts skills to a warrior. The problem was, even Zhu Hixin himself had not yet successfully completed his research on the improved medicinal pill formula, but Ling Han could analyze the formula just by using his nose. How could Zhu Hixin not be completely shocked by this? Your improved formula is feasible, but Copper Valley sand is too strong, and the merging point is too high. So no matter how well grounded it is, there will still be remnants within the completed pill, which will affect the quality of the pill. You can try using the Teeth of Raging Flames leopard as a replacement, Ling Han suggested. In his previous life, he had casually corrected a few people, and they later went on to become Grandmaster-level alchemists. Zhu Hixin immediately started calculating in his heart, muttering, "Raging Flames leopard's elemental alignment is fire, which just happens to neutralize the yin alignment of the black rock powder, and when reaching a specific high temperature, will melt easily, so there won't be any remnants in the medical pill. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Why didn't I think of that?" The old man was dumbfounded. Looking at Ling Han with a fierce gaze, he immediately said, "Young friend, please accompany me upstairs, and allow me to receive you." Of course, the reception part was false. He wanted to sneakily hoax him into revealing a few more pill formulae. From what he's seen, Ling Han should be an heir to some influential family well versed in alchemical arts. Ling Han smiled, but said, "I can't." "Why not?" Zhu Hixin became frantic. This boy was very possibly a walking encyclopedia of pill formulae. "Someone told me to get out," Ling Han said in a deliberate tone, glancing at Ma Da-jun. Putong. Ma Da-jun fell onto his knees. At this moment, he really wanted to cry but had no tears. How should he have known that Zhu Hixin would treat Ling Han this way? Had he known, he would have even respected Ling Han as an elder. Now what was he supposed to do? He couldn't stop the ugly expression on his face from showing. The other people in the shop were all watching and shaking their heads in their hearts. Had Ma Da-jun been slightly more polite in his speech and not so forceful in his attitude, he would still have a way out now. He had brought this onto himself. Zhu Hixin immediately turned his head, his wrinkled face showing a fearsome anger. How could he not be angered? As an alchemist, the one thing he sought in his entire life was to raise his own level in the arts of alchemy and obtain more pill formulae. Now, here was an obvious encyclopedia of pill formulae, and that guy actually asked him to get lost. Did he bore some hatred towards him? Fool! He shouted in anger, "What's going on here? Explain to me." Ma Da-jun wanted to die. Under the interrogation of Zhu Hixin, he did not dare not to answer, so he just recounted the incident that happened previously while stammering. Although he did not attempt to distort the facts, the insulting words he spoke to Ling Han were naturally not repeated. He wasn't that much of an idiot. What great authority you have. Zhu Hixin immediately gave him a hearty slap, causing Ma Da-jun to spin around on the spot 3 times before finally stopping, completely silly from the beating. You haven't heard of them, so that means they don't exist. Should all the hundreds of thousands of medicinal plants you haven't heard of be removed from this world then? Let me tell you, these 5 medicinal plants indeed do exist. Violet lotus grass can be found in Eaglewood Valley, blue branch fruit can be found in one of the valleys in 100-linked mountains, 100-year vermilion bamboo grows in areas of extreme yang, red-leafed potato is found underneath volcanic ash. Only rotted-leafed dried tree roots is rarer, it can only be found underneath the old roots of a tree that has rotted for more than 100 years. I was wrong. I was wrong. Ma Da-jun kept apologizing in panic. What else was there to suspect if even Zhu Hixin himself had said so? He stretched out his hand and slapped himself, saying, I shouldn't have been conceited, I shouldn't have behaved like a snob. Zhu Hixin once again turned to Ling Han, and said, young friend, many apologies, many apologies. He suddenly started, because he recalled that before he left his master, he had heard his master mention a particular formula. That was a medication used for healing injuries inflicted on the spirit base, and it required the 5 types of medicinal plants that Ling Han had wanted to buy. That time, his master had sighed with regret and said that although this formula did not require to be refined into the form of a medicinal pill, the effects were unexpectedly excellent. Unfortunately, possibly due to passage of time, only the names of some of the main ingredients were known, yet the actual method of creation was long lost. As such, it left a very strong impression on him, and now he had suddenly recalled everything. Could it be that Ling Han was buying these medicinal ingredients to concoct the element heart recover spirit powder? The old man couldn't help the increasingly rapid beating of his heart. If he could get this formula and burn it as an offering to his late master, then his esteemed master would feel happy in the afterlife. Young friend, the medicinal ingredients you're buying, could it be that you want to concoct? Element heart recover spirit powder, Ling Han nodded, and truthfully said, my spirit base has been slightly injured. Pooh. Ma Da-jun immediately puffed in shock. Damage to the spirit base was fatal to any martial artist. From what he knew, there was no way to completely recover from it. But Ling Han's words seemed to show that coming up with a remedy for it was a piece of cake for him. Lu Yutong's eyes brightened as well. She was Lu clan's princess, and although she herself was not an alchemist, she knew that there were a lot of extremely valuable medicinal pills, like the permanent moon pill, that could heal injuries to the spirit base. The problem was, the value of the permanent moon pill was indescribably high. Even the Lu clan would need to sacrifice colossal wealth to get merely one of them, and they might not be able to buy one even then. Ling Han, Ling Han, how many secrets are you hiding? She was getting more and more curious about Ling Han. Now, even if Ling Han said that he didn't want her as a follower anymore, she reckoned her personal curiosity would make her stay. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 8. Subdued. Young friend, please take a seat. Zhu Hixin politely invited, displaying extreme solicitousness, without showing any arrogance typical of a black-grade alchemist. I can guarantee that within 5 days, no, 3 days, I'll have the medicinal ingredients that you require delivered to you. Good. Ling Han nodded. In his last life, his position was at the absolute summit, but he was weak now, so he might as well befriend a couple more people and extend his social network. Meanwhile, for a small character like Ma Da-jun, a small punishment was enough. He would not lower himself to the same level as him. Zhu Hixin was delighted and hurriedly led Ling Han and Lu Yutong to an elegant study on the 3rd floor. If I may ask, who is young friend's master? The old man asked. I have no master, I'm self-taught, Ling Han said. In his last life, he had visited many powerful authorities of alchemical arts and mastered everything. In the end, he formed his own faction, and became the greatest alchemist in history. Zhu Hixin naturally did not believe him. Ling Han was so young, how was it possible for him to have such a deep knowledge of alchemy? However, he was very impressed with Ling Han, and had the intention to make him join Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. Thus, he asked him numerous questions to examine Ling Han's skill level. Ling Han calmly answered all his questions. He was a grandmaster alchemist, whether in the past or in the present, who could compare to him in the field of alchemy. As their conversation continued, the leading role gradually fell into his hands. He occasionally caused Zhu Hixin to rack his brains in ponder, and the old man's face became more and more respectful. There was no seniority in academics. Whoever has the ability becomes the teacher. In the beginning, the old man kept addressing him, young friend, placing himself on a higher position, but very quickly, he changed his manner of address, and addressed Ling Han as fellow alchemist. In the end, with his forehead beaded with cold sweat, he couldn't help standing up and respectfully standing at Ling Han's side to listen closely to his teachings, as if he was an apprentice. It was just like when he used to be taught by his esteemed master. In his heart, Ling Han had already reached a very high position. He even had a kind of feeling, if only considering theory and insight, Ling Han had far surpassed his own master. Grandmaster, may I follow by your side, and continue to listen to your teachings? When Zhu Hixin said this, Lu Yutong was almost shocked to death. But after she carefully thought it over, it seemed to be the natural order of events. However, if this was known by the other great clans in the imperial city, she was afraid that everyone would die of envy. This was an actual black-grade alchemist. Although he was only a low-level one, the title of black grade was more than enough, wasn't it? Lu Yutong was astonished, and her resistance to the idea of being Ling Han's follower decreased slightly. Even a grandmaster alchemist like Zhu Hixin was begging to follow Ling Han, so what did she have to complain about? Ling Han shook his head, and said, "At this moment, I have no intention to take on any disciples." In truth, Zhu Hixin's talent in the field of alchemy, in his opinion, could only be considered ordinary. In the past, he had taken on 3 disciples, and all 3 of them were exceptionally talented. Zhu Hixin only felt that it was a pity, and furthermore fully realized that Ling Han refused because his natural talent in alchemy was ordinary, therefore he was not qualified to become his disciple. He too felt that this was natural. After all, Ling Han's knowledge and skill in the field of alchemy was at too high a level, one which he was only able to admire and look up to from afar. To become the other's disciple was indeed too much to hope for. Lu Yutong was dumbstruck that Ling Han had actually refused. He refused. This person was an actual low-level black-grade alchemist, and as long as Zhu Hixin agreed, even the imperial family of Rain Country would fall over themselves to meet him, and maybe would even gift him with a princess's hand in marriage. However, Ling Han had actually refused him without much consideration. This guy was really incomprehensible. However, if you encounter any trouble with understanding something, you can still come to the Ling clan to look for me whenever you like, Ling Han said. Many thanks, Grandmaster, many thanks, Grandmaster. Zhu Hixin repeatedly raised his clasped hands in Ling Han's direction, his face revealing the utter joy he was feeling. Lu Yutong felt speechless in her mind. If this scene was seen by others, they would definitely be so shocked that their eyeballs would fall out of their sockets. A person with the noble status of a black-grade alchemist was actually performing the salutations of a disciple in front of Ling Han, feeling honored merely because of being able to visit him. Then I'll take my leave, Ling Han said. Let me see you off, Grandmaster. Zhu Hixin quickly said. Oh, right. Yutong, did you bring any money with you? Help me pay for medicine in advance, Ling Han turned towards Lu Yutong and said. Lu Yutong, of course, now knew that this medication was intended for Ling Han himself and not for her illness, so she couldn't stop her lips from twitching, thinking that this guy really knew how to make the best use of everything. He had just taken her in as a follower and now he was aiming for her purse. No need, no need. Zhu Hixin hurriedly waved his hands. The alchemical knowledge he heard from Ling Han today was invaluable. How could he bear to take Ling Han's payment for the medicinal ingredients? Great Master, please do allow me to express some of my gratitude by waiving the payment. Ling Han pondered for a moment, then said, then do as you like. Though he had only casually taught Zhu Hixin a bit, he was the actual Alchemy Emperor. This little bit of teaching would be enough for Zhu Hixin to benefit from for the rest of his life. Zhu Hixin immediately looked delighted. To be able to do something for Ling Han, even if it was only such a small favor, made him extremely elated. He even felt honored. Then I'll buy some return origin pills, Ling Han said after thinking for a while. Return origin pill, this kind of cheap thing, how can I let Grandmaster buy it? Anyway, it's something I can casually create, so naturally, it'll be a gift to Grandmaster, Zhu Hixin quickly said. Lu Yutong was once again rendered speechless. Return origin pill could allow a martial artist to quickly recover his origin power. It was an indispensable support during combat, and it was not something simple that could be casually created. Although Ling Han only required the lowest level lower grade return origin pills, even one of them would be worth 3 silver coins at least. Zhu Hixin was very generous, immediately giving Ling Han 100 return origin pills. If it was not for the fact that Ling Han was still only in the body refining tier and could only take low-level return origin pills, he would definitely have presented him with high-level return origin pills instead. Ling Han and Lu Yutong descended down the stairs and left, seen off by Zhu Hixin. Where are we going now? Lu Yutong could not help asking after the two had walked for a while. Ling Han smiled slightly, and said, naturally home, to wait for the medicine to be delivered. Without healing the spirit base first, he had no way to start cultivating. Lu Yutong curiously asked, you really know how to concoct pills? There should be no one on this world who knows that better than me, Ling Han bluntly said. You're bragging, Lu Yutong harumphed. Although Ling Han had completely subdued Zhu Hixin was only a black-grade alchemist. There were still alchemists of Earth grade and Heaven grade above him. Ling Han did not argue with her. His status had long been engraved in history. Why didn't you agree to let Grandmaster Zhu follow by your side? He's not only an alchemist, but also a warrior of gushing spring tier, Lu Yutong asked. Ling Han paused in his step, turned over to look at her, and continued walking forwards, saying, first, your spirit base is of Heaven grade, and you've now reached the 8th level of element gathering tier, so you're one step away from breaking through to gushing spring tier. Second, I don't need anyone to concoct pills for me. Third, if I really need to have someone by my side, then a beautiful girl is far easier on the eyes than an old man. Lu Yutong could not help but be speechless. However, his words did cause her to be a little pleased deep within her heart. We'll go home first. I still have to teach you 3 yin mysterious arts, Ling Han said. Lu Yutong could not help feeling a bit excited and her steps quickened. The illness that caused her to fall asleep without reason has troubled her for far too many years. The two returned to the Ling clan residence. On the whole way, all servants they saw were wearing peculiar expressions. They had heard of what had happened that morning, that the chief butler had actually been trashed by young Master Trash. It wasn't too surprising for them to know about it, for this kind of news would naturally spread throughout the whole clan quite quickly. Ling Han pretended to see nothing and brought Lu Yutong to his room to start teaching her 3 yin mysterious arts. Aren't you afraid I'll go back on my word? Lu Yutong suddenly asked when Ling Han was about to recite the arts. Will you? Ling Han asked in return. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 9. Guiding Cultivation. If it was half a day ago, Lu Yutong really would consider casting Ling Han aside. Get the cultivation technique through deception first, and then compensate Ling Han with some material objects, is what she thought. Who asked Ling Han to ignore her noble status as the princess of a noble family and insist on having her as his follower? Yet now, she was hesitant. The reserved nature of a girl caused her to really want to leave Ling Han's side, but once she recalled the endless miracles Ling Han had displayed, she wanted to stay at his side, curious to see where his limits were. Maybe yes, maybe not. Who can say for sure? She gave him an ambiguous answer. Ling Han laughed heartily. If Lu Yutong had solemnly vowed to be steadfastly loyal to him, he would not have believed her. However, he was a grand warrior of the Heaven tier and the Alchemy Emperor. How could he be unable to subdue this little slip of a girl? Take off your clothes, he casually said. Lu Yutong suddenly looked furious. Could Ling Han want to force her to sacrifice her body in exchange for teaching her the cultivation technique? Although she didn't want to die, and really did very much want her illness cured, if she had to use her body in exchange, then she would rather die. Don't misunderstand, Ling Han said with a smile, I only want to guide you in the circulation path of the origin power. This particular cultivation technique requires the origin power in your body to circulate through many odd paths and can't be explained simply through words. You should know yourself that the slightest difference leads to a huge loss, so if there is the tiniest discrepancy in the circulation of the cultivation technique, that's why we must make sure that there is no any discrepancy or error at all. Note: the slightest difference leads to a huge loss is an idiom equivalent to the English "a miss is as good as a mile." Lu Yutong paused. Ling Han's words were not false. There were uncountable veins and arteries within human body. If there was the tiniest bit of error in the circulation path of origin power, then the results would be vastly different. The problem was that she was an unmarried young lady. How could she take off all her clothes and allow a man's finger to roam over her whole body? She considered for a long while, then suggested a compromise. She would keep her undergarments on, and Ling Han would use a chopstick instead of a finger in guiding the circulation of her origin power. "Get out first," Lu Yutong said, pointing outside. Hey, this is my room." Ling Han laughed, but he still stood up and walked outside. He still had this little bit of gentlemanly character. He waited for a long while before he finally heard Lu Yutong say, "You can come in now." Ling Han entered the room to see Lu Yutong seated on the bed, her beautiful figure concealed by a bedsheet, her beautiful hair falling over her shoulders like a waterfall. She was very enchanting. She really is a captivating and extraordinarily beautiful girl, Ling Han thought. Even considering the demanding eyesight he had in his last life, he couldn't help but admit that the charm of this icy beauty caused his heart to slightly stir. Snow-white teeth biting red lips, beautiful eyes roaming around, looking both resentful and pitiful, Lu Yutong slowly slipped out of the bedsheet, and her beautiful, jade-like figure appeared. There was only a tube top on her upper body, and her fair, smooth skin was like the highest grade of jade, exuding an entrancing luster. She wore underpants on her lower body, but she had torn the trouser legs from her upper thigh downwards, revealing two long, straight legs. They were neither too plump nor too thin, rather, they could be considered perfect, causing one's heartbeat to speed up. Note: it refers to those bigger pieces of underwear that extend to the upper stomach. Seeing Ling Han's roaming eyes, she couldn't help feeling embarrassed. Her beautiful, jade-like face blushed, adding on to her allure. Goodness, she was supposed to be an icy beauty, but now that she was blushing, she suddenly became a universal temptation, looking so enchanting that even Ling Han's heaven-tier temperament from his last life was slightly disturbed, causing him to want to devour this captivating little demon. But he quickly came back to his senses and said, "Sit in a cross-legged position. I'll be teaching you the first level of mental cultivation method from 3 Yin mysterious arts." He recited it word by word. At first Lu Yutong couldn't enter into the right state of mind. After all, she was almost naked in the same room with a man, but her martial artist's heart very quickly defeated her embarrassment as she listened carefully to Ling Han's verbal chants, committing them to her memory. Ling Han spoke very quickly, but Lu Yutong showed shocking talent. It was almost like whatever she heard, she would never forget. Ling Han only recited everything twice, and Lu Yutong already managed to remember almost 1,000 words worth of verbal chants. This was only the first step. The next step, and also the key factor, was the circulation path of the origin power. Ling Han, using a chopstick in place of his finger, lightly drew all over Lu Yutong's beautiful figure, guiding her in circulating her origin power. Once, twice, only 3 times were enough for Lu Yutong to already circulate her origin power according to the new cultivation technique. She truly deserved the title genius. Ling Han hurriedly departed from the room. This little demon was really too enchanting. He seemed to have overestimated his own willpower. If things continued in the same way, he very possibly would end up taking advantage of and pushing down this entrancing beauty. Since Lu Yutong had already started cultivation, she would definitely not regain consciousness in the short term. Thus Ling Han decided to just sit outside and similarly begin cultivating. However, he was not cultivating 5 elements heaven grade skill. Instead, he began cultivating Indestructible Heaven Scroll. Because his spirit base was not healed yet, he did not dare to take any risks. If his spirit base was injured further, then it would not be healed even by element heart recover spirit powder. The circulation of Indestructible Heaven Scroll was like a bottomless pit, very quickly expending the little origin power he had within his body to refine his muscles, veins and bones and make them stronger. If it was cultivated to the limit, then the body would neither deteriorate nor age. Even if a meteor crashed into him, the meteor would shatter while he would be completely unharmed. Of course, he was much too far from reaching that state. After merely 5 minutes, the origin power stored within his body was completely exhausted, so he swallowed a return origin pill to quickly recover the origin power within his body and then continue cultivation. Each medicine has poisonous properties. In the beginning, the return origin pill could exhibit the best effects, but as the amount he took increased, the immunity of his body to the pill's effects also largely increased, causing the pill's effects to worsen until, finally, he could only recover less than 1/10 of his origin power after taking a pill. Ling Han stopped. The day had ended. To continue cultivation would be of no effect. However, his improvement was very obvious. His muscles, veins and bones have all become slightly stronger. According to his estimate, this kind of strength would compare to the 3rd level of body refining tier. No wonder it was called Heaven Scroll. It was awesome. In his last life, Ling Han had also cultivated a few recovery-type skills, like Golden Body Secrets and Boulder Technique, which allowed the body to become stronger. However, their effects could not compare to Indestructible Heaven Scroll's effectiveness. The difference between them was like that between heaven and earth. That was normal. If Indestructible Heaven Scroll was not that good, how could it be possible that a warrior of the heaven tier would need to spend over 10,000 years to comprehend it? Not to mention, even then it was only the first layer he comprehended. However, cultivating this Indestructible Heaven Scroll really expends a lot of origin power and would still need a large amount of valuable medicines to support refining the body. This would definitely delay my cultivation. However, this Indestructible Heaven Scroll has too great a power. The delay would be worth it. My spirit base is immortal grade, anyway. I shouldn't think about the highest tier of neither deteriorating nor aging body yet. The first level of Indestructible Heaven Scroll is also further divided into 4 tiers, which are respectively the Dead Tree tier, the Rock Cliff tier, the Iron Sheet tier and the Diamond tier. Once I reach the Dead Tree tier, my body would be like a dead tree. Attacks on me would be as if hurting a dead tree without damaging its life. I can even have my body be like a dead tree, without any life signs. No one would be able to tell that I would still be alive. Once I reach the Diamond tier, then no matter how heavy the injury, it could be recovered in an instant. Even a torn-off limb would be able to recover. It's practically a godly skill. Ling Han turned around and looked at the door to the inner chamber. The curtain moved, and a goddess-like figure walked out, her lightly blushing face incomparably graceful, beautiful and entrancing. You've completed cultivating the first level of 3 Yin Mysterious Arts, Ling Han said with a little surprise. Lu Yutong nodded, slightly afraid to meet Ling Han's eyes. An odd feeling was stirring to life within her heart, one that she had never felt before. This girl really is a genius, Ling Han thought in his heart. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 10. Healing the Spirit Base. 3 Yin Mysterious Arts has a total of 9 layers, corresponding with the 9 tiers of martial arts. The 9th layer would be the Heaven tier, which was the highest tier that Ling Han had reached in his previous life. Out of the many cultivation techniques circulated all over the world, none have broken through to the 10th tier, which was the Shattering Void tier. That was why Ling Han traveled all over the world to visit all kinds of ancient historical sites. The first layer of the cultivation technique known as 3 Yin Mysterious Arts corresponded to the body refining tier, a stage Lu Yutong had long passed through. It was naturally easy for her to cultivate it again. It was just like a high school student doing the homework of a junior high student. But the problem was, she had actually completed cultivation of the first layer within such a short time. Wasn't her talent way too strong? But thinking once more, Lu Yutong had the 3 Yin Vanishing Veins, and 3 Yin Mysterious Arts was originally formulated for someone who possessed such veins, so her impressive cultivation speed was something normal. Ling Han nodded, saying, "Then I'll continue to teach you the 2nd layer. As long as you are able to cultivate the majority of the 3rd layer, you will have completely suppressed the 3 Yin Vanishing Veins, and will no longer be affected by them." The third layer, in other words, she would reach strength equal to the gushing spring tier. However, Lu Yutong was already at the 8th layer of element gathering tier. Moreover, she could already sense the juncture to break through to the 9th layer, so she was only one step away from breaking through to the gushing spring tier. Lu Yutong couldn't stop the blush on her beautiful face from increasing even more. To begin teaching her the 2nd layer now, wouldn't that mean that she would have to take off her clothes again? Don't let your imagination run wild, Ling Han said in reprimand. Lu Yutong could not help fiercely glaring at him. Her imagination was not running wild. Rather, she was afraid that Ling Han's imagination was running wild instead. The two once again returned to the inner chamber and, just like the previous time, Lu Yutong removed her robe, allowing her alluring, beautiful figure to appear practically naked in front of Ling Han. As the saying went, the first time is awkward, the second is easy. Although she was still very embarrassed, it was much better than the first time. When Ling Han taught her the 2nd layer, it was almost night. So, he had servants deliver 2 servings of dinner, of which he himself ate a large portion, leaving a smaller one for Lu Yutong. Women, you see, have small appetites, so a small portion was enough. After about 3 hours had passed, Lu Yutong once again exited and said in extreme surprise, "My cultivation speed now is actually 10 times faster than it used to be." This meant that once she broke through to the 9th layer of element gathering tier, she'd need less than 2 months to be able to reach the top before tackling the gushing spring tier. Too fast. Ling Han could not help smiling, and said, 3 Yin Mysterious Arts is a heaven-grade cultivation technique. Heaven-grade cultivation technique. Lu Yutong almost fainted. What did heaven-grade cultivation technique mean? Let's just put it this way. The reason why the Lu clan had become one of the 8 great clans in the imperial city was because they had a scroll named less than Red Cloud Secrets greater than, which was a black-grade medium-level cultivation technique. At the same time, the Imperial Qi clan was able to secure its position as the lord of the land because they had a scroll named less than 7 massacre skills greater than, which was a black-grade high-level cultivation technique. In other words, a black-grade high-level cultivation technique would allow the creation of an empire, and a black-grade medium-level cultivation technique would allow a power to become one of the great clans of Rain Country and thrive for 1,000 years. Now then, what significance did a heaven-grade cultivation technique have? It was indescribably valuable. If Ling Han had said from the start that he would teach her a heaven-grade cultivation technique, she would definitely have treated him as if he was crazy. You couldn't blame her. After all, if a puny, little clan from Grey Cloud Town could have a heaven-grade cultivation technique, then wouldn't this world be completely messed up? But now, she couldn't not believe him, for she had personally experienced it. This is an actual heaven-grade cultivation technique, and you're just going to teach it to me like this? Her heart trembled. There was an unexplainable throbbing within her heart. Ling Han smiled. This 3 Yin Mysterious Arts indeed was a heaven-grade cultivation technique, but could only be cultivated by the possessor of the 3 Yin Vanishing Veins. It was useless in anyone else's hands, so of course he did not fear that Lu Yutong would divulge it. Moreover, he had obtained Indestructible Heaven Scroll, a truly supreme godly cultivation technique. Just comprehending its first layer required 10,000 years. Compared with this, no matter what kind of heaven-grade cultivation technique it was, it was completely worthless. Naturally he would not tell her that. Instead, he said, "You are my follower, I'm never a miser to my own people." This was not a lie. He had always swept any mess made by those close to him under the rug, and was very generous towards his own people. Lu Yutong could not stop an expression of embarrassment from appearing on her beautiful face. According to her understanding, the words, own people, had a completely different meaning. After a while, she finally said, "Don't worry, without your permission, I will not teach this cultivation technique to anyone else." Whatever, Ling Han said. There would only be one possessor of the 3 Yin Vanishing Veins every few thousand years anyway, so even if she taught it to someone else, it would be lost through the long passage of time. To anyone else, this was a cultivation technique that couldn't even compare to yellow-grade low-level cultivation technique since no one else could cultivate in it. Who would actually want to preserve it for thousands of years? Lu Yutong could not help feeling a little disappointed. Previously her heart was trembling in excitement, and if Ling Han had just used a few sweet words to pamper her a bit, her good feelings towards Ling Han would definitely increase. However, Ling Han simply did not bear such thoughts, and so he missed an excellent opportunity. She walked towards the table and began to eat. While slowly eating, she said, "From tomorrow onwards, I will have to enter seclusion to tackle the 9th layer of element gathering tier, so I won't be able to follow you around in this period." Ha ha, don't worry, don't worry. I have no plans to go anywhere these 2 days, I will simply wait for Zhu Hixin to deliver the medicinal ingredients. I plan to heal my spirit base first before doing anything else, Ling Han said. He treasured this second life very much. Now that his spirit base was injured, he definitely did not want to take unnecessary risks and ruin his own foundation in martial arts. Lu Yutong did not waste time. Once she finished eating, she entered seclusion to break through to the 9th layer of element gathering tier. Ling Han could only yield the inner chamber to her and move his bed to the outer chamber. Ling Zhongquan and his group felt immeasurable hatred towards Ling Han, but thanks to Lu Yutong's presence, they absolutely did not dare have any crazy ideas. Ling Han seldom came out, and only waited quietly for Zhu Hixin to deliver the medicine and for Lu Yutong to come out of seclusion, thus making it even more difficult for them to act. As expected, Zhu Hixin did not go back on his word and, on the 4th day, personally came to deliver the medicinal ingredients requested by Ling Han. Naturally, the old man also took the chance to consult with Ling Han. In truth, he had wanted to come over these few days, but in his eyes, Ling Han was at the level of a supreme grandmaster, so he didn't dare to come and disturb him for no reason. However, Ling Han did not have much patience today and very quickly saw Zhu Hixin off. He wanted to immediately start concocting, heal his spirit base and once again return to the path of cultivation. To Ling Han, concocting medicine was naturally a piece of cake. After only 3 minutes, he had finished concocting the element heart recover spirit powder. He did not stay idle these 3 days. Aside from cultivating Indestructible Heaven Scroll, he naturally had completed the preparatory work. Concoctions are really too bitter, AI. Ling Han sighed as he swallowed the element heart recover spirit powder completely. Not long after, a heat-like energy attacked his body, and he suddenly had the feeling that there was some sort of fire burning within his body. Upon examining his dantian, he saw that the damaged spirit base was currently slowly recovering, and would be fully recovered within no more than half a day. Within this time period, he could not do anything else, so he simply waited patiently. To someone who had been in slumber for 10,000 years, half a day's wait naturally meant little. Slowly, within Ling Han's dantian, the 5 elements mix chaos lotus completely bloomed, very natural and beautiful, too wonderful for words.